My name is Real One. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh yeah, fine. Okay, great. So my name is Real One Badmus. I'm based in Calgary, Alberta, and I just relocated to Alberta like a month and a half ago, and got to Canada in the year 2020, December 2020, and I'm a pharmacist from Nigeria. Worked in the hospitals, community pharmacy, did a couple of um, researches as well in Nigeria, but not clinical research, I would say. But coming into Canada, I felt like there was more opportunities for clinical research, and I took up some courses in Canada, and I was able to understand the fundamentals of clinical research over here. And after that, I started applying for different roles in clinical research. But one of the things I would say, one is your resumes should stand out. Just like Alex said, it should tell a story. So that's one thing. Another that I think I did was another is your interview sessions. So it's one thing to have a resume that's spink spank and you've published it, done everything you think is okay, and for you to be able to deliver on your interview day. So delivery is something you really need to work upon as an individual, not to even talk of clinical research and project management and clinical research. So one, interview deliveries, you should be able to tell a story, use a STAR method very well, effectively. STAR method of answering questions effectively. And another I would say is getting into clinical research, clinical project management, because that's the role I'm currently as. I'm a global clinical project manager at IQVIA, and entering this role was kind of tough initially, I would say, but that was not my first role though. As a clinical project manager, I previously got a role at another contract research organization back in Ontario when I was in Ontario. But then I got this role at IQVIA, and then I transitioned and moved into Alberta here. But the day-to-day of a clinical project manager, I would say it can be very tasking, very, very tasking. No matter how people say it, like they might say it's, I want to be in project management and clinical research, fine. But it depends. Maybe the way I'm currently working and the kind of clinical trials I run, they're tasking. So you have to be at the top of your game in every single thing you do. Even though you don't know what you're doing, you have to act like you know what you're doing, and you have to hit the nails on the head. So let me break it down. In clinical research, pharmaceutical companies, most times, they give your company millions and billions of dollars to run trials for them. And your company, which are contract research organizations, they just say, you're the project manager for this study. And they push you to the sponsor, to the pharmaceutical companies, and you start to run the study. So there's nothing you can, there's nowhere you can hide upon. There's no umbrella you can hide upon, because every single day you will have to report. You will have to drive your team from business development. Just, it depends on the kind of contract research organizations that you're currently employed under. You can be invited into bid defenses. You can start way from startups to conduct closeout, what's it called? Delivery, the final deliverable, given the final deliverable to the sponsor. You can run the study from start to finish. So where I currently work, I work on phase 1s and phase 2Bs. Okay, and it's, when I say it's kind of different from what we usually do, and I think it's kind of harder in a way, because it's not the usual conventional clinical trials. We run these clinical trials on a cohort basis. So let's say we have a protocol, for example, and it's been approved by the FDA, IABRI approved and all, blah, blah, blah. And phase ones, generally, we know that it's not about efficacy, it's about safety, tolerability, and, you just want to get study endpoints. So walking that part, you can't just say, okay, these are subjects, start having, the study drugs. You have to enroll them in cohorts. So let's say cohort one, some protocols might have 9 cohort, 10 cohorts, and so one cohort might be a total of 9 subjects. So you enroll one cohort, start the sentinel dosing. After the sentinel dosing, move on to another intra-cohort dosing, then the main group dosing. Once you're done with that cohort, you have a safety review meeting. And after that, then you decide to dose escalate, and you keep going over and over and over and over until you get to the last cohort. So that's, sometimes I feel it can be so tasking, but like I said, it's doable, especially we as Nigerians. But I would also say it's not just about the title being a Nigerian. You have to brace up. You have to brace up to the task ahead of you, because you have a lot to do, a lot to learn, a lot of tools at your disposals, your CTMS, your TMS, your scheduling tools, your databases, your clinical and analytical tools, different things you will need to start learning. And those things do take time. And each CROs or contract research organizations have different way in which they work, and they have different work instructions and SOPs. So you have to blend yourself in that fashion and work according to how they do their stuff. So these things, I will say, day to day as a clinical project manager, I can ascribe it to be like an event planner. You don't really have to know much about the event in totality, but just know exactly what needs to come before what, and what needs to come before the other. So you should be able to know, okay, at this point, okay, it's startup. We have to have a kickoff meeting. After that, maybe before that, you might probably have a client expectation meeting, things like that. Then you have your internal planning meeting. Then you have your external kickoff meetings, things like that. You start working on your project plans, your integrated project management plan, your project communication plans. You should be able to know exactly what comes after the order, because without that, then you're going to fall into a big problem. You might not really get yourselves. And as a project manager, as a clinical project manager, everybody looks onto you. 2 things: they look up to you, 1, and you have to chase people. You have to chase people to get the deliverable done, and everybody looks up to you. And being a global clinical project manager it's another task on its own, because then you're working globally. You might have meetings 6 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. You can't say no. You have to be there because everybody's looking up to you, and you also and you might be the one. Not most of the case, 80% or 90% of all the meetings, you're the one presenting. So you have to prepare for your meetings, get your facts and figures right, because sometimes questions might be shot at you from different corners, especially from the sponsors. You can't afford not to answer these questions. You have to give an answer. Even if you don't know it, you have to have an answer to questions that comes your way. So little things like that as a clinical project manager, I feel, for me, if you'll ask me, naturally, like all the way back from Nigeria, it was not something I felt like I could do, because I'm more of an introverted person. But coming into this space, I felt like it's needed for me, because there's nothing I don't want to do pharmacy. I don't want to stand 8 hours in the pharmacy and start doing the same thing over and over again. And I felt like the only best thing I could do was to look for a job that I can sit down in the comfort of my house, or probably wake up in the morning 4, 5, 6, anytime, and get to my laptops and my monitors and just work. So I felt like this must probably be the best for me. And I walked up to it and planned my way, arranged my resumes, made my certifications, and started applying. It might look hard initially from the beginning, several denials, several rejection letters, but in the end, you will surely get something. So persistence is something I feel like you need to have, and don't be discouraged. There are a lot of people on the group. Like Alex said, on the Slack teams, you can reach me out on LinkedIn. We can always, collaborate and network in that space. And talking about salary wise, clinical project manager, again, it depends on the company. I worked for a CRO that was roughly salary 95. I've worked for CROs that are as a clinical project manager, and also I've worked for CROs that are like ranging for like 145. So it just depends on where exactly you are at the moment. So the range for clinical project manager can range depending, like I said, depending on the clinic on the CRO again. It can be from roughly 800 to 850 or 160. It just depends. That's a CPM 1. So if you're talking about like CPM 2 and on, then you can talk about like 160 plus. So it just depends on where exactly you are. Like I said, the company also matters. So I feel that's really much, except if I'm missing something, but I think things needed to get into the industry. I'll say one, your GCP, you need to understand the stuff. You need to be able to speak out, and you need to be able to speak the language they want to hear, especially your sponsors and the people you're working with, because no one is ready to, hire anybody who is not really fluent or who's not really, doesn't have that, who has probably a communication barrier or something like things like that. So you need to be able to break through that space and be able to speak and carry your interviewers along while you're in the interview, and make them laugh and cut across different scenarios, even if it's something you've never done before. Create things imaginary, create stories, build stories while you're preparing for your interview, build stories, and share these ideas. And remember, use your STAR method when you're at your interviews. Those things really matter a lot. And your interviewers or your hiring managers, they do look at these things because they feel like people who use these things very well in the interviews, they're good clinical project managers, and they really go a long way in relating with the sponsors. Because why will the sponsor give a CRO millions of dollars for me to give, for the CRO to give a CPM to the sponsor and start saying blah blah blah, and not able to coordinate tasks or do anything, or even coordinate just the common English languages, things like that. So you should be able to communicate and deliver on your tasks, and be able to carry your team along. Like I said, chase people and be good at what you do. So GCP 1, TCP, Tri-Council Policy Statement 2, that's another. You can have your PMP certification, you can have a Scrum certification, you can also have your SOCRA certifications, your ACRP certification, things like that. Those things go a long way. They can make you or break you. They can, push you to the top right from the bottom, just like I did. It can do a lot of things for you. But first, it's a thing of the mind. You need to build yourself, build the kind of person you are, and push yourself. Because like I said, I was an introvert, and you can never see that in me. Like once I'm done for the day, I'm back to my introverted nature, and that's who I am. But in my meetings, this is just who I am. I speak, I talk, and people like nod their heads, and they feel like, oh yeah, this guy's really delivering. Fine, but I am. But that's just who I portray myself to be, and who I've built myself over time to be as well. So that's really what I feel like a clinical project manager should be. So if you have questions, you can just shoot them to me, and I'll be sure to answer them. Do I have any questions, please?
Yeah, you do. So so this PMP, is it really important to get a role as a project manager?
Okay, I'll say no. It's not really important, but these little certifications, they make this recruiters spot you out amongst the crowd. That's something I've known. Like these certifications, they make recruiters spot you out amongst the crowd, especially when you've probably claimed one or two research stuffs back from Nigeria or in Canada, and you have one or two of these certifications. They just push you to the top all the way. So that's really the mentality I think I have, and I built upon, and it kind of worked for me. But if you would ask me, I've seen people who got into clinical research. I've worked with people who in previous jobs and even my current job who do not have PMP certifications, and they're really doing well, even better than I am.
You mentioned some other certifications. I didn't get them.
Scrum, ACRP, SOCRA.
SOCRA?
Yep. Society. I can't remember. But if you Google SOCRA, you'll see SOCRA certification.
Yeah, you said Chrome. What's that?
Scrum certification.
Oh, Scrum. Oh.
But like I said, those things are not really that needed. But you can just walk towards getting them. Because I've seen people, especially in Nigerians in clinical research, if I can count, I know at least 3 people who I personally advise to go that route, have your PMP certifications and get a couple of things alongside, and it worked for them. They're currently project managers in clinical research.
Okay.
Yep.
So many people have told me about this PMP thing. How long do you think it takes to get this done?
Again, it depends on you. It depends on how you can absorb things. For me, it took me like 25 days. I've seen people 2 months. I've seen people a month and a half. I've seen people 1 month. It just depends.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Can you put out maybe your email or your number or something like this to reach you? Because I think I'm gonna relate more with you the way that you're a pharmacist. So I think we have things in common. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, you can reach me on LinkedIn. I'm currently on LinkedIn.
Real one.
Yes, Real One Badmus. I think I'm an admin on Nigerians in clinical research. You can always search me from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And I'm also on Slack.
I'm still very new to this Slack thing. I never knew it existed as an app, but I'm still trying to find my way around it.
Same with me.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other question?